Home order issued by Governor Cooper, members of the MWBE Citizen Advisory Committee are participating virtually. All members will vote by roll call. A member will be recognized, at which time the member will state his or her vote. And with that, welcome everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. We're going to go ahead and move forward with the adoption of the agenda and the approval of the minutes. Both everyone have received previously. Jakira sent them by email. And so now we will conduct the roll call and do the vote for the adoption of the agenda and approval of the minutes. And I'll turn it over to Jakira.
So good afternoon, Chair Easton and members of the committee. I'm going to call the roll for the MWBE CAC committee being held today, Tuesday, May 25th at 4:30 p.m. Chair Kelly Easton.
Here.
Committee member Drew Gertzmeyer.
Here.
Committee member Cornelius Graves. Committee member Jordan Gwynn.
Here.
Vice Chair Leah Metz.
Here.
And we were also notified by committee member Brunson and committee member Stephen Hemrick that they will not be in attendance at this afternoon's meeting. So I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Easton.
Okay, thank you. So today we have two good faith effort claims to review. So now I will turn it over to Alex Bohannon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
We have two good faith efforts that the good faith efforts that we will be reviewing this evening. The first is we're going to review Haynes Park Phase 2, which is coming up. I'm going to share my screen with you all. We can get started. Okay, can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, excuse me,
but it's
Alex.
not in presentation mode.
Okay.
Alex, before you begin, I just want to state that this meeting is being conducted as an information-only meeting due to a quorum not being present.
Yeah. And I just dropped the link to the form in the chat so everyone can pull it up for the Haynes construction.
All righty. So first, beginning with the goals. So we established goals for this project at 12% for minority-owned firms and 7% for women-owned firms. The goals that were submitted for this project.
This meeting is being recorded.
The goals, I'm sorry, when I clicked a message popped up and then this disappeared. Okay. So when the goals that were submitted by Bar Construction were 3.5% and 26% in. And I will go to the next slide. So for letter A, did a representative of your company attend the pre-bid solicitation or the pre-bid meeting scheduled? A representative from Bar Construction did attend, and that they would receive the full 10-point allocation here. For item B, did your company advertise in general circulation, trade association, or minority-focused media concerning subcontracting opportunities? I'm going to go over to the actual submission so that you all can see for yourselves. This is actually a really strong performance on item B that we really don't really see too often. Bar Construction actually used 4 different ways to outreach. So the first thing they did was they used the Blue Book, which is basically, it's a network. It's a network for contractors and subcontractors to be able to reach out for contractors to be able to reach out to subs to get their participation on projects. They also used, and they also took out an article in Greater Diversity. We've seen that before. Other contractors have done that. They also sent their letter to multiple different municipalities and areas. I mean, that there are certain municipalities that have their own lists that they send those to. And this really is this is something that is really more appropriate to submit under item H, but they still have the 3 because they have one more. And that is, they use I-square foot. So I-square foot would count as the 3rd required required avenue. And so they would receive the full 15-point allocation for item B. Are there any questions about item B? All right. Item C, did your company provide written notice to a reasonable number of specific MWBE firms, ensuring that their interest is solicited at least 10 days before bids are due to allow MWBE firms time to participate? They need to provide us with a copy of their solicitation for each quote sent from at least 3 minority firms, and they need to let us know, that letter needs to have a specific description of the work, location where bid documents can be reviewed, as well as the name of the representative of the prime bidder, as well as the location, date, and time. And so here is a copy of their letter. They have this is a sample, and they have a specific description of the work. They have the time in which bids are due, and they also have the bid due date, the location, the project start date, and the contact, who is Austin here. And so this is all their other information that we'll be talking about in other numbers, but all of the information that is required for letter C is in here. And so out of the 15 points, the full point allocation is appropriate. Are there any questions about item C? Okay. Letter D, did you follow up initial solicitation of interest by contacting MWBE firms to determine with certainty whether MWBE firms were interested? It says, please include a telephone log, but as you all know, like with technology, we deem it appropriate if they include an email list. And so here, as you can see, there are pages of emails about where this follow-up letter went. And of course, this is, again, additional information here, as well as like who it all went to, that he included multiple responses from people. So here, this company, which is a demolition company, they indicated they weren't bidding on the project. And then this is down here where their follow-up. The follow-up is dated for April 22nd, and they did it via email. So again, a bunch of different emails. So they would receive their full 10-point possible allocation for item D. Any questions here? So for item E, how did your company identify and select portions of work to be performed by MWBE firms in order to increase the likelihood of MWBE participation, including where appropriate breaking down the contracts into economically feasible units? So they've indicated here in their scope of work that they've been specific in identifying the different areas of work here, which meets our threshold. So a full point allocation of 15 points would be appropriate here. Any questions about item E? Item F, explain how you provided interested MWBE firms with equal access to specifications, plans, and requirements of the contract. So down here in letter F, got too far ahead of myself. So they said, as additional help, Bar Construction has plan specifications and requirements available for review by prospective minority and women-owned businesses in our office plan realm. After reviewing these, we can provide these documents to you on CD or paper prior to bid day. Also, additionally, you can view the projects on iSquareFoot. There's a link where you can view specific information to the project, so that's available too. So the 10-point allocation is appropriate for letter F. Item G, how have you negotiated fairly with interested MWBE firms, not rejecting the MWBE firm as unqualified without sound reasons based on a thorough investigation of their capabilities? So here is where we ask them to submit their quote comparison form. And I may have to zoom out a little bit just so you all can see. Well, I think that'll be good. So we'll just start here at the top. So as you can see, they got the WBE participation on the paving. They have MWBE and WBE participation on landscaping. And then they have WBE participation only on the surveying, painting, and electrical. They have some MWBE participation on the concrete work. And then that is about it. And so that's, you can see at the bottom where they came up with their final percentages of the 3.61 and the 26.63%. Are there any questions about Bar Construction subcontractor quote comparison form or item G? Lee, I see you were thinking there. You had a question?
I will later for the folks, yes. Okay. Not for you though.
Alrighty. For item H, and then, okay, really quickly, they broke out the concrete pricing here, which is actually something that we don't ask for, but they did anyway. They broke out the concrete pricing so that you can see how much the labor costs, the material, and the equipment. And then they also included all of these quotes in their submissions as well. There we go. So they included their screenshot that they also included that I said would be more appropriate here. So they received 5 points for just this one example, but they also received the full 10-point allocation because they reached out to multiple. So as you can see in this email, I'm here, my email is in here, but also they reached't to Greensboro. They reached out to other organizations, Rockingham. So there are multiple people here. So they would receive the full 10-point possible allocation for item H. Are there any questions here? Okay. Item I. How did your company provide assistance to an otherwise qualified minority firms in need of equipment, loan capital, lines of credit, or joint pay agreements to secure loan supplies, or letters of credit, including waiving credit that is ordinarily required? In their submission, they said joint pay agreements and the opportunity to rent equipment from Bar Construction will be considered. Also, modifying their payment schedule to meet individual needs on the submission of a qualified invoice. So that's quick pay. We'll talk about that. And then the joint pay, Bar Construction offers joint check agreements and quick pay agreements for MWBE businesses. Now, scrolling down, let's see. This is just a note. It says Bar Construction encourages and offers a joint pay agreement program to MWBE and WBE for any and all subcontracting work for Bar Construction. And they included a copy of the blank form. So this is the blank form, which provides us with evidence of implementation. So that because they do offer this as a standard practice. And so therefore the full 20-point allocation would be appropriate for letter I. J specifically addresses assistance around bonding or insurance, or providing alternatives to bonding or insurance for subcontractors. Oh, and then also down here, so they put in here evidence where they've actually executed a joint check and a joint check agreement with previous contractors. So they actually have provided us with an example of where they have done that before. And this was actually for the Winston Lake Aquatic Park renovations. So item J, they've highlighted here that assistance in direction in obtaining bonding or insurance is something that they will offer. That was in their letter, but also they've highlighted a part where they said, if you need assistance with obtaining bonding, loan capital, lines of credit or insurance, or joint pay agreements, please contact us and we will review your needs and direct you to available agencies for assistance. And it says Bar Construction will look at that's a joint venture. That's for item K. We'll come back to that. And then this is a letter that is written to, I believe, Taisha, that says that it is the general policy of Bar Construction, with the consent of Bar's bonding company, that Bar Construction requires bonding from subcontractors whose contract price to Bar is in excess of $100,000. And so basically this says that if the subcontractor's total amount is above $100,000, then they are required to have insurance, but if not, then they're not. And so this tells us that they do have a policy in place, but it doesn't necessarily waive bonding for everybody. Regardless, I think that full points for this item may not be appropriate, but certainly you can give at minimum 10, and if you would like to give them full points, you can, because they do have a policy in place. And the subcontracts that are over 100,000, then really what sometimes that indicates is that obtaining bonding and insurance for that subcontractor may not be as difficult as it is if you are smaller. So they are providing some opportunity there and making it easier for some subs. Are there any questions about item J? Item K, this letter is regarding joint ventures. Now, they did say that they will entertain the possibility of a joint venture, but as a practice, we have not given points for this, just for them saying that they will look at the possibility, because the actual item asks for copies of any documentation advising, if whether or not they had entered into the joint venture. So they would receive 0 points for item K. And the last item for this one, item L, did your company provide quick pay agreements and policies to enable minority contractors and suppliers to meet cash flow demands? What procedures were initiated to fulfill this requirement, and how were the MWBE firms informed of this assistance? So in their letter, what they posted here is their policy, which says that in order for them to engage in quick pay, you need to submit a certain amount of, which is biweekly. They need to submit all of these things, and then you only have to submit it once. And then they need to submit those with the first pay application to them. And then after that, they will be paid biweekly. And so that's their standing policy. And then in their item, it says modifying our payment schedule to meet the needs on submission of qualified invoices, means that they are willing to do these things, and they will insert a quick pay clause in the subcontract, which again follows that policy that they provided us a copy of to us. And then this is an example of a subcontract agreement where there was a quick pay clause inserted here, where it says payments made to subcontractor bi-monthly, provided invoices are received in Bar Construction's office. And so they've provided letters, evidence of both offering and of implementation. So they would receive the full 15-point allocation for item L. And with that, that completes this review, the review of the good faith effort. are there any questions for me before Bar Construction? Some representatives from Bar Construction should be on the call or should be trying to join at some point.
Alex, can you just scroll up a little bit so we can see the date on this agreement? Okay, cool. Thank you.
So Austin from Bar Construction is on the call, and I'll let him in. Austin, can you hear me? Austin? Let's see. Austin, can you hear me? I think he may be having some trouble. Let's see.
Yeah, it looks like his sound isn't set up.
Alex, can you give Austin a call, please? Let's see. Austin, can you hear me? Austin, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So thank you for joining us this afternoon, Austin. The committee has reviewed Bar Construction's good faith effort. And so feel free to give context for your good faith effort submission. And then after that, the committee members will ask you questions.
Yes, I mean, I don't know, we try to do the best we can with a good face, reach out to all the minority subcontractors that Alex sent us in his Excel spreadsheet, as well as we use I Square Foot and Blue Book, Plan Hub. You know, we try to reach out to as many as we can and use what we can. I guess you can see that through our good faith efforts. So I guess if y'all have any questions for us, we'd be happy to answer.
Yeah. Hey, Austin, it's Leah. Question for you just on What do you think it is that there are less minority firms turning in bids? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is, I mean, right now it's not just minority, it's all around. I mean, everybody's, I think, so busy. It's pretty hard for us to get bids from anybody right now. And, you know, I guess I don't know if y'all are aware, but Haynes Park had to rebid because I think we were the only ones that showed up the first time around. And I assume that's just because the other general contractors didn't have any bids. And then, like, I know we were missing fencing bids, plumbing bids, and a roofing bid the first time around. And same thing with, I know the Sprague Street Splash Pad Park was, you know, had to rebid. I think Salem Lake had to rebid. I think it's just everybody's having trouble finding subs just because everybody's so busy right now. I don't think it's just minorities. I think it's all around.
Okay. Thanks for that. And then on the bonding and insurance and then joint venture, have you had MWBEs utilize those in the past 5 years?
Bonding, yeah, and insurance, yes. Joint venture, no. And main reason for joint venture just because, you know, we pretty much stay in the public bid market, and I'm not sure that it's even allowed in public bidding. You know, I'm not sure that it would be even allowed for this project. So.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional questions for Austin from any of the remaining committee members? Thank you for joining us this afternoon, Austin, and Alex will provide a follow-up regarding your good faith effort.
All right, sounds good. I appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. And I'll turn it back over to you, Alex, for the next good faith effort review.
Okay, so next we have the City Hall roof project, which Owens Roofing Incorporated submitted their bid on. So here we established goals at 7% for minority-owned firms and 4% for women-owned firms, and the submitted goals were 0 and 0, but they were not exactly 0, and I'm gonna show you what I mean. They were just so low that it was 0 point. It would be point something. So I will show that to you. Here, as you can see, the total bid that came in was around $800,000. And so if you look at these amounts here, like there's a quote there's work from BCO, Piedmont Portables, Network Distribution. All of those numbers is $800, $400, $414. It doesn't really amount to too much for a total base bid that was so high. So that's why you saw in PowerPoint that the goals came in at 0 because the total amount was really low. So beginning with the first items. So item A, did your company attend the pre-bid solicitation scheduled by the city? So they did attend the pre-bid meeting. I do remember them being on the list. They did not include the screenshot from that, but I do remember them being there. So they didn't include the list, but I know that they were there. So they would receive the full 10-point allocation for item A. For item B, did your company advertise in general circulation, trade association, or minority-focused media concerning subcontracting opportunities? Here, they have they've included their list and who they, reached out to. But I do believe that they have utilized one or two. I'm trying to get through these screenshots. It looks here that they did not reach out to any person that was not a contractor, so they didn't submit any information about letter B. No advertising in any of those mediums, so they would not receive any points for item B. Item C, did your company provide written notice to a reasonable number of specific MWBE firms that their interest, the solicitation needs to let us know that they send it at least 10 days before bids are due to allow firms time to participate. They need to send it to at least 3 minority firms, and it has to include a specific description of the work. Each solicitation also needs to include the location where bid documents can be reviewed, name of a representative of the prime bidder to contact, as well as the location, date, and time. And so here, this is their solicitation here, where they have, this is their log of people that they've reached out to. I'm trying to find, they did not submit this in order, so I'm having to kind of shuffle here. This is their solicitation letter, and it says, it's sent on April 7th. It has the quotes due by 5 p.m. on April 14th, and April 15th is the bid date. Now, this is not 10 days before bids are due, because if it's sent on April 7th and the bid date is April 15th, then that's not 10 days, that's 8 days. So they would not receive, full points would not be appropriate here because they didn't have, they didn't send it in time, but it did include at least the areas that they're trying to, the supplies and masonry is what they were reaching out for. They included that as well as the name of a contact. So I would say that the full point allocation is not appropriate, but I think 10 points, anything less than 10 points would not be appropriate here. Are there any questions about item C? All right. Okay. Item D, did you follow up initial solicitation of interest by contacting MWBE firms to determine with certainty whether the MWBE firms were interested, and it asked to include a telephone log? So I'm going to see if I can go back up here to the log that they submitted here. It doesn't seem to be dated, but it does have the contact information of the firms that they reached out to. It's hard for us to see if it's a follow-up, if the log is a follow-up, if there's no date which they place the calls. So it says there's notes at the bottom, and there's notes at the bottom of each list here, and it says that the date, it says emails sent and called. So the first day when they sent out that email, they gave a call, and then they indicated whether or not they received a response or not. And so let's see if later on they followed up. So it was rescheduled. So this bid was actually rescheduled for later by the city, and then they sent out an additional email to follow up. So here that is, and that was sent on Tuesday, April 20th. So they did follow up, and they included a telephone log. I would say that here, full points for item D is appropriate, given they do have the submissions in here, although they are not in a direct order with the items. Are there any questions about item D?
Question, Alex, was the bid date was the April 15th, but then some of these are after.
So the original bid date was April 15th, and then there was a change. Usually what happens is if we have, and I can't recall specifically about this project in particular, but if we don't get enough bids, if you don't get at least 3 bids the first time it's due, or if internally maybe the department, there's something that they need to do to push it out, or there's a question that needs to be answered, something like that, they'll push it out. And so are you asking for the new date, what the new date was?
Just noticing that there's
Right.
dates after the 15th. So.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
that
it
makes sense.
was pushed back.
Okay.
Okay, so item E, did your company identify and select portions of work to be performed by MWBE firms in order to increase the likelihood of MWBE participation, including, where appropriate, breaking down contracts into economically feasible units? So let me go back up here to their initial letter. So they did not, what it looks like, it says, you know, and right here at the top, it says they're currently soliciting minority business enterprises for the following scopes of work. Your firm is being contacted based on the construction codes listed on the State Hub website. And then it says hauling and then roofing materials. So this is not what we tend to see for breaking down the work into economically feasible units. Not to, just because it's sort of readily on your minds. In Barr's example, what they did was you saw an entire list of specific work that is available, and that helps minority-owned firms figure out, okay, if you do a certain kind of hauling, or if you do a certain kind of roofing, or if you provide a certain kind of roofing material, then that's something that you can do. But just saying hauling and just saying roofing doesn't necessarily help. So for item E, some points may be appropriate, but full points certainly not. I would say no more than 10 for item E. Any questions? Item F, explain how you provided interested MWBE firms with equal access to plan specifications and requirements of the contract. So here it says that in their solicitation, they have contacts, they have a contact here. All plans and specifications can be viewed by coming to our office location in Smithfield, North Carolina. I'm Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 p.m. So here they've provided an opportunity where you can submit, you know, where you can look at the plans, but you have to travel to Smithfield. I personally don't know, you know, if you are a local firm, I'm not sure where Smithfield is, a 919 area code. So I would say that if you are a local MWBE here, traveling to Smithfield to view the plans is not something that might be, you know, it's not, I wouldn't count that as equal access. So certainly here, full points would not be appropriate. I would say no more than 5 points.
Yes. Smithfield is 139 miles from here.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Leah.
Alex, this is Jordan. Question, did we see any, I'm trying to flip through the pages as well. Did we see any evidence or anything about them having placed the plans and specs electronically on iSquarefoot or one of those portals?
Not based on this submission, not based on anything that they've submitted.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All Alrighty, for item G, this is how have you negotiated fairly with interested MWBE firms? This is where we ask them to submit their quote comparison form. So here, it looks like they are including here the quotes that they've received, and they've received a WBE quote for the electrical, portable toilets and material suppliers. They received no M quotes, and they received a fairly large quote for masonry and no MWBE quotes. They indicated here like no MWBE quotes were received here. Are there any questions about their quote comparison form?
Alex, I might have missed it, but what was the total amount of the quote? Like the overall?
Their whole bid?
Yeah.
It was about eight. It was about eight. I can tell you right this minute. Let me just make sure so I have it accurate. So their base bid was $871,870.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, for the, also just for full, kind of just for the record, full transparency, this project, the reason why this project has been tough, like the amount of subcontracting work for this project was going to be nominal from the beginning because of just the nature of its work. So this is a project where it's replacing a roof. And so a lot of times, even though like Owens Roofing is a contractor, it's the majority of the work is going to be done by them. And then they would need a sub to have to do the masonry. And then everything else was like relatively small anyway. So it isn't, so I don't want to communicate the message that there was a bunch of opportunity available and then they just missed it. That's not what occurred. That's not what occurred here just because of its scope. You know, the electrical, the portable toilets and material suppliers, and then specifically the portable toilets, because we don't see that too often, that is actually them really trying to kind of dig into the project to try to see where they can find some MWBE participation. This was difficult to do because you were only going to have like one masonry, so, you know, one company that was doing the masonry. And, you know, that was really where we saw the majority of the opportunity was that masonry work. So for item H, which organizations were used from the City of Winston-Salem's MWBE office or other organizations? I didn't see it in here, but I do remember them reaching out to me to ask for a list, and I provided them that list. So they would receive at least 5 points. Now I'm not seeing where they included any other evidence to to support any other outreach to any organizations. And so therefore for item H, they would receive just the 5 points out of the 10. Are there any questions about item H?
Hey, just a quick question, as I'm kind of thinking about this from a broader perspective. So the goals that were set were 7% minority and 4% women owned. And so, and correct me if I'm wrong, but are the goals are set by individual project, right?
Yes. If all construction projects that are over where the estimate is over 100,000.
Okay. And so, and maybe I should get involved in just attend meetings where the goals are set. But so in setting the 7% and 4%, you all looked at the scope of the work and the available contractors, and you all thought masonry, there were masonry women and minority owned businesses that could bid this. Mm-hmm. So in the area, right?
Right. So essentially, what I do is when we have a sheet that has a formula in it that sort of is what we plug in the information to. And essentially what we do is we take the amount of work that we see in the estimate. So let's say so in this project, there was a large amount of masonry work. What I do is I go to the State Hub's website and I look for all of the masonry subcontractors that are within our metropolitan statistical area, and Guilford County, because I don't believe that Guilford County is in our MSA. It may be, but I added in because I know that there are a lot of work. There are a lot of people who do work whose businesses are based in Guilford who will do work here, and I put those in a list, and I basically take a portion of that list, and let's say there are 20 subs on that list. I then have that because, of course, all 20 of those subs are not going to be available at that time to do that work. So as just a rule of thumb and what's been done previously, I sort of have that list, and then I put that number in our sheet. And I do that the same way with all of the different areas of the subbing areas. And so the spreadsheet will actually churn out for me based on its formula what the suggested goals should be. And then the internal committee discusses the spreadsheet and basically says yay or nay. And the committee actually weighs things like, so for instance, with this project, one of the things that the committee struggled with in setting the goals was, so there's only going to be one firm to do the masonry work, right? And what we saw is that the majority of the masonry firms were going to be M firms, minority-owned firms. And so what they were saying is that, why not set the goals, set the goal where the M goal is a little bit heavier, because we're seeing that with the masonry work, it's going to be heavily on the M side. But I think that what we can't do, and what I think the committee ended up deciding to do, is to really balance that, to say, we set goals as intentionally as possible, but we don't like to deviate too much from the formula because it's consistent, right? And so the 7-4 goals that you see are really based on the committee sort of saying, okay, we understand that it is possible that the masonry would go to, if it does go to a MWB, it'll go to an M firm. But when the good faith effort was submitted and we look at the quote comparison form, it didn't go to an M or a W. And so, that's sort of with this individual project, that sort of shows up a little bit more, just because the subbing work is not spread out amongst a number of trades. It's really heavily leaned on to the masonry, if that makes sense. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, Alex, you did. And that makes total sense. And I appreciate the context and background for this specific work. It's just, roofing is, when you think of like a new build, roofing is technically considered a subcontractor, right. And so when you think about just a re-roof, it's generally a smaller scope of work. And so hearing your all's thought process and the goal setting process was really helpful, and that makes sense. So thanks.
And again, the other piece is that, and I think, that same exact statement kind of was said where usually the roofing work is done by a smaller firm. But I think because of the size and the nature and the age of the building, it just ended up, the estimate ended up being as costly as it was, which, required us to set the goals for it. So, are there any other questions right now for me? Okay, I believe we were on item I, which addressed assistance with loan capital or joint pay or lines of credit. And let me scroll back up here to their firm. So it says, based on what they've said here, there's no language around lines of credit or capital or equipment. I see language about quick pay, but not joint pay. So there's no evidence of offering here. There's no evidence of implementation. So for item I, they would receive no points.
Alex, has the city worked with Owens Roofing before? It seems like they kind of missed the mark on
at least evidence submission for this good faith effort?
Yes. No, and my understanding is that they did not. They have not worked with us before. But what I've been doing for newer firms is sending an example. So on the morning, because I think the bid opening was sort of later in the afternoon. I sent them on, I think it was April 26th, which was around it had to be the bid day, or that morning after. I sent them an example good faith effort that they can use as guidance. Because a lot of times, if you're just bidding with us for the first time, you may not know. So I've been, as a courtesy, sending that as a guide. So I did do that.
Okay.
For item J, this addresses bonding or insurance. They did say that Owens Roofing does not require bonding or insurance for minority-owned businesses. And so what we've done in the past is if they've made a statement that they do not require it, then we take that as evidence of offering and implementation. So for item J, they would receive the full 25-point allocation. For item K, of course, this is the joint venture item. They would not receive any points. And then for item L, did your company provide quick pay or policies to enable minority contractors and suppliers to meet cash flow demands? They said that they provide quick pay to all subcontractors. Now, I want to try my best to look here, and when they get on the call, you all can ask. I don't see any evidence of implementation of that quick pay. Yeah, no. I don't see any evidence of them supplying quick pay from previous projects. So they would receive just the 5 points for offering and not the 10 points for implementation here. Are there any questions about this good faith effort? So if not, I'm going to admit, because Jakira had to step away, I'm going to admit Ms. Owens. Hi, Ms. Owens. No, I think you're on mute.
I don't use Zoom. Sorry.
Thank you for being with us this evening. So the committee just finished reviewing your good faith effort. And now if you want to talk a little bit just to give some context about your submission or in your efforts you went through to try to solicit WBE firms, and then the committee members may have some questions for you.
Okay. Well, with any project we have, we normally, I get the spec book and I go over it and see if there's anything besides roofing that we can solicit for. And then I look on the website to the hub search engine and try to find people we can use to bid on the job. With this particular job, it was kind of hard because I guess the way the specs were written, people were afraid they were going to leave out money. I know Stone Restoration was at the pre-bid and they're MBE, but they said they're not going to bid it this time. And ProTech, we sent it to them. They're an MBE and they did not want to bid it as well. And SRM, it was not a minority, and masonry was the only, I guess, subcontractor that would be a big item for us to utilize an MBE company. And we had to pretty much beg SRM to bid for us, and because they were hesitant because and any job you're not really sure about the scope of the work, you might leave stuff on the table, and I think they were worried about that. So we try to look outside, and of course, wood's gone up, so our price for the wood might not be only $400 because, you know, we're seeing it go astronomically high. And we look for a porta-john because we have to have one on the job site as an MBE, and we found one. Any others we try to, but we can't, you know, we try our best trying to get minority bidders to bid for us and give us quotes, but pretty much this is all we got is what we submitted.
Are there any additional questions for Ms. Owens?
Hey, Betty, good afternoon. This is Jordan Gwynn, a committee member here on the Citizens Advisory Committee. Sounds like a pretty complex project, and I know when you start working on historic buildings and buildings that are on the national registry, it can be a little intimidating to some. A question that I had for you is around letter B on the affidavit that was sent in. And the question is, did your company advertise in general circulation, trade association, or minority-focused media around subcontracting opportunities? I didn't see anything flipping through the evidence you all sent, but I wasn't sure if there was something that you advertised in that maybe wasn't included. Can you clarify there, please?
We didn't check that box, so no, we did not.
Okay.
We didn't. And I also wanted to say our SRM did solicit to an MBE, so they're using for their base bid, they're using a veteran-owned small business enterprise. I'm not sure if that counts or not, but that makes up $73,000 of their bid amount. Oops. How did I do that?
We still hear you. Yeah, I would have to defer to the city on that. I don't think veteran-owned counts, but I'm not an expert. Another question that I had was around letter F. Explain how you provided interested MWBE firms with equal access. I saw that, you know, you all made the plans and specs available to come visit you all. Were these posted to an online portal, maybe iSquarefoot or one of the others, if a minority or women-owned firm didn't want to or couldn't drive to your location?
No, all of those could easily be emailed, which
okay.
I think we stated as such. Sometimes we go ahead and just email it to them so that maybe they would look at it and say, oh yeah, we want to bid on this job. But I think it's been, it's the spec, I know I was told by others that the specs reads difficult for them and they can't anticipate what their costs would be. Mm-hmm. So they decided not to bid. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh. I'm looking at myself, wondering how I don't do Zoom. I'm trying to figure out how to get out of that.
It's okay. Are there any additional questions for Ms. Owens?
Not a question for Ms. Owens, but for you, Alex. Veteran firms, are they included in the MWBE?
No, so if there are a variety of ways, veteran-owned businesses can be certified, I believe, through the federal government, but the state hub office, I don't think does that certification. Did you say, Ms. Owens, that they were? Did you say they were in? How are they certified again?
They're called a VOSB, veteran-owned small business.
Yeah. So that you said a VOSB?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a federal certification that unfortunately we don't, the city of Winston-Salem doesn't utilize as to count toward the MWBE goals.
Okay.
But if there are no further questions, Ms. Owens, thank you so much for joining us, being able to join us, and for your patience. I'll be reaching out in the next couple of days to notify you about next steps.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Click.
And so I will, so if there's nothing else for me, I will turn it back over to Chair Easton.
Alex, before we go, I want to make sure I'm doing this consistently. So letter I around how did your company provide assistance to an otherwise qualified minority firms, lines of credit, joint pay agreements. We didn't see anything in the evidence about that, did we?
No.
Okay. All right, that's it for me.
Chair Easton.
Okay, thank you, Alex. And so before we wrap up, I just wanted to thank all of the members who are here today again for being here and going through this good faith effort, as well as the ones we've done over the past. Regretfully, this will be my last meeting with the MWBE advisory, so I'm actually stepping down, and so Leah will become the new chair. And so with that, thank you again. It's been a pleasure working with you all. And yeah, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Everybody have a good
Thanks,
evening.
everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.